Hello, everyone. I'm Denton Davidson, senior editor for Gold Derby, here with Andrew Baseman, the set decorator for the Apple TV Plus thriller Severance. People are going crazy for this show, Andrew, and the production design and the set decoration are so important. I just want to ask first, though, if you look back, is there one little piece on that set, one little prop, one little thing that you're like, oh wow, I'm so glad I got that on there? Maybe one people might not even think of first, but what's the one thing you look back on and get excited about?
Wow, that's a tough one. I love so much of the things that I brought to this, and one key piece. I don't know. I think maybe in Miss Selvig's house, you see a little bit of a sampler on the wall when she's spying on Mark across the way, and it says something like, "We must be cut to heal." And that was a little something that Dan Erickson wrote. I said, I need some Kierisms, some Kier sayings that we could put upstairs, that if a nosy neighbor peered in the windows, it wouldn't tip off too much. So I did it as a needlepoint sampler that my PA Mallory did beautifully. And Ben liked it so much, he moved it from a kitchen wall to the dining room wall, right next to the window. So that's one of my favorite pieces.
I love that. You work with production designer Jeremy Hindle. So episode one, the first scene where we see Helly in the meeting room, and what did you need to get right about that room in order to set the tone for this series? And then how do you and Jeremy work alongside each other and coordinate things in this whole process?
When I interviewed for the job, Jeremy showed me his mood boards, his lookbook, as it were, and it was just filled with these incredible images. And he found a design vocabulary and a color palette that we used throughout the project. So he hit the nail on the head from the beginning. And one of it was to have a palette of green for the severed area. So one of the first things was to make sure we got the right color carpet, because in the aerial shot, you see Helly lying on the table, and then you see the carpet. It's three concentric green circles or ovals around her. And so getting the right green was important. And of course, the table, getting the right size table and texture. So that was a vintage piece. And then, of course, we looked for appropriate chairs that we could then cover in green vinyl. So it was really all about getting those green colors right.
And then the set decoration of the entire world, it sort of feels like a character. It's like the white walls, the green floors, like you spoke of. We also had that cubicle desk.
Mhm.
What went into the cubicle desk and the little things on it? Because there are some individual things in each of their spaces. What went into that piece?
So the desk was really important to have one desk unit floating in this sea of green carpet and white walls. That was really, we had to get that right. And Jeremy did some research and actually designed a desk that was, we call it the quad. And it was the four stations and the wall dividers that went up and down to give privacy or to, reveal the characters next to them. So it was getting that one singular unit just be like a piece of sculpture, but also be a functional desk for them. So I found the chairs. The chairs were a really bland gray contemporary chair that didn't really speak of a period. They're neither vintage and cool, nor are they contemporary and beautiful. They're just really very functional, but they're actually, I bought them new. So they are out in the world. The monitors were custom designed based on earlier models of computers, and we purposely made them look like toys. So the four of them are treated like children. So on their desks, they have the perks or the stapler, the erasers. All of the incentives were things either that our prop master Kat found or we had made, and the assumption was that they were actually made in the O&R. So I'm sorry, the O&D office. So those were all made there. And when we see the office, they're all stacked up in rows. So it shows that the production is done in-house.
I was wondering about the computers because it feels futuristic in some ways, but it's also very retro in other ways.
Mhm.
The computers and the software, it reminded me, some people might not get this that are watching, but it reminded me when I was a kid, there was this, like something called number crunchers
Mhm.
where, where people would play this game on old computers. And I was curious, who comes up with that kind of stuff? And how do you all work together to come up, who comes up with this old computer program that never existed?
Well, it really starts from the mind and then the pen, or I should say the keyboard of Dan Erickson.
Okay.
He came up with this world, and he was very specific in his details. And as a set decorator, I love that, because sometimes I'll get a script and it'll say teenage girl's room, and I'll go to, this happened once actually. I asked the writer to, give me some clues as to who this girl is. And I said, is she into horses? Is she athletic? Like, what can I put in this room to tell her story? And she said, oh, she's very unique. And so I was like, okay, that's not much to go on. So I guess I'll just create her own character. But Dan was the opposite. Dan came up with paragraphs and pages for all of our characters. So yeah, it all starts with Dan, actually.
And another piece inside of Lumen that is captivating are these long white hallways. And
Mhm.
I spoke to the cinematographer, Jessica Gagne, and she told me these hallways were actually built and really impressive to film inside of. Can you talk about what it was like to be part of that process and what went into sort of designing them outside of actual building the structure itself?
Mhm. Well, because the hallways are so integral to that space, and there are not miles and miles of them as it seems, but there are hundreds of yards of them, and they all go around, connecting all the rooms. So much like any of the surfaces we use, like the carpet, the tiles, that was just endless, cartons of tile that my set dressing team hand laid. And the drop ceiling also all done with the lights, outlets and switches on the walls. All of that, we had to get the color right. So we had many camera tests to see like what's the right color white. Jess did a great job of never making the halls look boring. I mean, they were white halls, but with her, with the camera angles and the lenses, it had a lot of different we go from white to gray to the lights chasing and turning off, and there was always a different way to shoot it. And so it was really just getting the right color. So we just tested lots of different floor treatments and different shades. And so that unless you see it with the camera test, you won't really know which one's right.
What's the length of the process it takes to sort of build this world, and in terms of talking to Ben Stiller or the writers or your team collaborating to build the sets, what is that process like from beginning to end of brainstorming together and then seeing a finished product?
Well, in this case, hate to say it, COVID was our friend, only because we had a little more time to prepare for it. So typically we have about maybe 12 weeks of prep to, once we show up at work and read the script for the first time, to actually shooting. And because we were creating our own world visually, we weren't really referencing it's not like, oh, let's do the Godfather's, home, or, E.T.'s bedroom. It's really, we weren't really basing it on anything except coming up with our own visual vocabulary. So it was having lots of meetings. It was me sourcing lots of different chairs and tables and desktop items and lighting, and pretty much process of elimination. We didn't want anything that was too identifiable. We wanted to keep the period vague, and we also wanted non-specific lamps. We didn't want like, oh, that's the, so-and-so lamp. We really wanted things that you couldn't really tell what time or period it was. So many things I sourced from Eastern Europe. I had some time to ship those over. Some things, because of COVID, didn't arrive in time, because we were about 5 weeks from shooting when we shut down in mid-March of 2020, and then started up again a few months later remotely. And then we returned to work to finish our prep and then to shoot. And that was in end of August. Wow. So it really was just finding new things that hadn't really been seen before, and making the viewer a little uncomfortable as to, not quite being able to pin it down.
Yeah, it was vague because the Severance itself seemed futuristic, but the computers looked old. The cars looked like they were from the 90s. It was very fascinating to watch and try to figure out. And speaking of the cars, we look at the Audi's lives and the set decoration for that is completely different. You go to their homes, their houses, Mark's houses, sort of plain. Maybe that's representative of he's sort of depressed. He's lost his wife.
Right.
Other homes are more packed in with things. How did you plan those things out, and how did you want those to look in the outside world of this?
Right. Well, that was a challenge, and again, we tried different things and different approaches, and what we landed on, I think, worked perfectly. So for Mark, we wanted him to have a very sparse interior. When you go into his basement, you see lots of boxes and furniture piled up. Those are the pieces from his former life with his wife, who had passed away. And so that's where all the life and joy is, down in the basement, but he doesn't want to be associated with it. So he has like the most boring sofa in his living room, a coffee table, and like a side chair. And they're all just really sad pieces that kind of sum up his current situation. For his neighbor, Miss Selvig, she has a warmer environment, but it's also very off. You don't see a lot of it, but we built and decorated an environment that was very Earth Mother, kind of 70s hippie, macrame and candles, and sort of a Southwestern vibe, turquoise colors. I did a little shadow box in her dining room. It was a miniature quilt shop. So it was like a box with little miniatures. And that's a little bit of a Easter egg for the miniatures she's creating in the basement of, the Kier Shrine. So there were little things like that sprinkled around. Also, we didn't want to give away her her alter ego. So we have the Miss Selvig world upstairs, and then downstairs is not even the Mrs. Cobell, it's her other, her like third persona. So that takes on another look. For Devin and Rick, and we wanted their house, which was actually an Eames, a student of Frank Lloyd Wright, designed the house. And that's very warm, lots of wood tones. The color palette is warm colors, reds and oranges. And so that, the Audis have a warm environment as opposed to the innies world of despair. So for Dylan, we see a little bit of his life outside of work, and that was also very warm. We only see, I think, his closet, but we did an entire house that showed a lot more of character, and it was also warm and lived in, and lots of furnishings and detail.
What was your favorite space to create, or maybe the most challenging, or maybe it was both? I'm not sure.
I really like doing Devin and Rickens because when you start with a Frank Lloyd Wright interior, you really can't go wrong. I mean, it's everyone who saw that, the actors, the crew, when we were there, like, I certainly was envisioning, my living there with my furnishings. I think we all had fantasies of living there. So it was just really a joy to dress that and to bring in all the fun stuff that Rick and Devin had. I really enjoyed doing his office to show his interest. And this is also where Dan came up with some brilliant ideas. You don't see a lot of these details. Hopefully you'll see them in season 2. But we had, for example, archery arrows in a little vase. And I had a teeny archery award, 3rd place, I think, participant, something like that, to show that he, tried archery and didn't do very well with it. We also have rows of his books and a kind of bogus literary award he won for one of them. And there's a picture of him. We, staged a picture. So that's framed next to that. And then his current interest is bonsai trees. And so we have like 6 bonsai trees on the shelf and on his desk with little spritzer and little tools, and that's his latest hobby of his that he's actually doing okay with. But I'm sure in like a couple of weeks they'd be dead. So I love the details, and it was a real pleasure working with Dan and Ben, and just giving a lot of life to those interiors, even though you don't see a lot of them, but it's there, and the actors really appreciated them, and it was fun to do.
What is Ben Stiller like working with as a director and sort of the helmer of this?
Ben has he's always thinking. He has an incredible mind, where he knows what he wants, and it's our job to dig it out of him if he can't articulate it. But he's pretty articulate, and things evolve. One of the inside jokes I had with him was I would dress a set and I'd put a lot of dressing in there, and he would be like, "Oh, this looks great, but maybe we should take this out, and then maybe take this out." And then by the time we're done, there's like a few elements in the room, but they tell the story better than if I had left all those things in. So that became and I would try to it's like, okay, how many things can I leave in there that he's not going to remove, but I don't want to put too much stuff in that he's going to just take away. So it was figuring that out. But watching the show as a viewer and not as a participant, and then ultimately as a fan, I really enjoyed just watching it objectively and seeing how beautifully framed every shot was, and that's Ben, that's Jess, that's all of the collaborators just coming together, and just it was never too much. It was always just right. So it was a great learning experience for me. So I had never done minimal or anything as minimal as this before.
And season 2 was announced. So are you going to get back to work on that? Can you tell us anything? Or
I can't. I hope to work on it. I have no idea what's going to happen. When I was watching the last episode, I was screaming at the TV. Like, I didn't want it to end. And I was horrified what was happening to these characters. And I was like, wait a minute, I read the script. I know what's happening. Like, I've got to just calm down. But I'm really eager to see what happens in season 2, like everybody else.
Well, we're certainly looking forward to it. Andrew Baseman, congratulations on your work. Best of luck this TV award season. To our viewers watching, head over to goldderby.com, make your Emmy predictions, and check out more interviews with top contenders. Andrew, thanks again for chatting with Gold Derby today about your work on Severance.
Thanks very much.